Someone told you on some website somewhere that the term was made up by the media to scare you, but this is not true. In fact, you used to call it a Pineapple Express, but a Pineapple Express is geographically specific to Hawaii to BC kind of thing, whereas the term atmospheric river can apply to anywhere in the world. Except this time, it's being applied to British Columbia because it's happening right here this weekend. Let's go. Sketched out. Big moose. Getting angrier. Now we jump off the roof. There she goes. You never know what can happen. They're going on, you know. Here she comes. That was pretty close. This is planet Earth. Everybody who's ever cut you off in traffic lives here. All right, let's have a look at planet Earth. So here is where our jet stream currently sits. Coming across, we got some strong storms up there in the Gulf of Alaska, and it's currently hitting the south coast. It's going to move around a little bit, and you'll see what happens in a minute. Here's our storm sitting up there right now, moving towards the coast, drawing all this stuff towards this direction, towards the BC coast. And as you can see, this temperature looking in all these, we got cool air riding all the way down the mountains into the middle of the United States, most of Canada, except for southern Ontario, which is seeing some stormy weather this weekend, sitting somewhere around 0 or below. And this is why in British Columbia today, right now we got special weather statements in the South Gulf Islands, mid to late morning each day. High tide expected. Low barometric pressure will combine with periods of high astronomical tide to produce elevated water levels today and Sunday. A minor coastal flooding is possible along shorelines. The threat from wind and waves together accompanying high water will be greatest on Sunday. Elevated water levels at high tide are likely to persist on Monday and Tuesday. Meanwhile, in the interior, Coquihalla Highway right now, snowfall, 2 to 5 centimeters expected there. Another frontal system cross BC brought 20 centimeters to the Coquihalla summit, and another 5 centimeters is still expected before this evening. So this is round 1 of what's coming. 10 to 20 centimeters in the Castlegar, Trail, Rossline, Nelson, Salmo, neighboring communities this afternoon. Maybe early afternoon periods of snow expected to continue through the region early afternoon. Front should move out of the area later this afternoon. A few flurries could linger into this time. 9 centimeters have currently fallen. Additional 2 centimeters are likely. Up in the pass, 10 to 20 more centimeters expected. Begin to taper off this afternoon, though, as the front weakens and moves out of the region. The route from Paulson Summit to Kootenay Pass received 12 centimeters of snow. Additional 2 to 4 centimeters can be expected, especially along the eastern section toward Kootenay Pass. Flurries are expected to continue along the eastern sections into the early evening. The danger is rapidly accumulating snow could make travel difficult over some locations. Weather in the mountains does change suddenly. So here we are looking at the 500 millibar level. That's 16 to 20,000 feet. That's your jet stream projections. And this is the one that really tells weather people what's going to happen. And let's watch how that storm moves up towards the Alaska Panhandle and look at, well, we'll just rewind back there 1 second. Sunday, that looks like it's really lining up to slam into the BC coast on Sunday. And it's going to carry lots of weather along that crazy atmospheric river. Here it comes. Tuesday, repeat rounds. How much of this breaks into the interior? Well, we'll look at that in a few minutes. There's been some disagreements. This is GFS. Some modeling says we're going to, it's been going back and forth. If you look at, say, the Weather Network forecast for your area, you look at it one day, 14-day forecast, and it says one thing. You look at it 6 hours later, and it says no snow falling, hardly a centimeter here, a centimeter there. You look at it 6 hours later, it's got a whole bunch of days of snow falling for a place like here in Wells, maybe not for where you live. Here we go, Friday the 8th, looking like we're on the cold side of that jet stream. So you really see over the week, sometime later on Wednesday, temperature's going to be dipping down. And then this will encourage some very strong storms in the United States. This will encourage possibly thunderstorms along those flanks and snowstorms in the middle of that, right? So, and you look at into Ontario again next weekend, looks like you're going to get, that avenue for all that moisture to travel is coming to you. So this atmospheric river won't just affect British Columbia because that storm, that atmospheric river is going to help bend that jet stream down. It's going to put cold air and moisture into different parts of the continent. It's going to make for that classic El Nino setup that they're expecting through some of these, this is the area into the Appalachians and say the Midwest into the Eastern United States where they're expecting to see more snow than usual. So right now in BC, today there's been some snowfall. You can see here on the map going on down in southern British Columbia. And that storm, 961 millibars, seems to be where it bottoms out. So that's very deep, ear popping, and one right behind it coming in too, right? So that's steering as we get into Sunday up the coast mountain ranges in a sense that it should make the most of this snowfall and precipitation stay to that western section of British Columbia, not a lot of it breaking through. Monday, 9:57, even lower. So the storm that comes in after gets even more potent. So we're not just dealing with one story, and by Monday, overnight into Tuesday, you really see how that's 958 millibars. That's very low pressure at 958 millibars. And along that comes this whole tail of moisture, this ribbon of moisture that, as we just saw how that jet stream is aiming, is going to follow right in and just keep slamming in. So forecast discussion has been, how will that look into the interior BC? Well, you see on Wednesday, some of that snow breaks through. Tuesday, some of that snow breaks through. So moving down into Washington, Oregon, that precipitation, Northern California, and that low starts to rise in pressure and equal out to the air masses around it, and high pressure developing into Friday over that northern part of BC. And that cold air remains to see how cold it will get. And a weaker storm still next weekend. This is projections on the GFS modeling, so it's not going to be exactly like this, but this gives us a pretty good idea of what that big picture might look like. And it's just sort of like, how does it affect your local area? Well, that remains to be seen, but it seems like some sort of high pressure is acting like a block, and it's allowing for, again, so successive pattern of atmospheric rivers, and some stronger than others. There's different categories, different rating levels. A 5 would be really bad. I'm not the one who makes the call as to how bad these should be, but if there's going to be 300 millimeters of rain in some places on Vancouver Island, for example, I'd say that's significant. Definitely significant. So we're looking at the possibility of like avalanches in coast mountains, landslides in lower elevations, coastal regions, road washouts, minor flooding, maybe major flooding. I mean, we've seen that in Abbotsford in the past, so we can't rule out the possibility that that is a possibility. Into BC, but look, this GFS modeling right now is saying successive pattern with some breaks, of course, over the next couple of weeks of strong storms hitting into the coast. And that might only start to level off into that beginning of that third week of December, more or less. Again, we got high pressure kicking low. So how cold will that get? I mean, I don't know yet. Greenland, wow, that is crazy high pressure. We've been seeing a lot of that lately. Really high and really low weather. I haven't said much about anything going on the East Coast because I'm talking about atmospheric rivers, but there's an argument to be made that there might be atmospheric river conditions on both sides. So this is why we call it an atmospheric river and not a pineapple express, because if one were to happen on the east coast of Canada, up into Newfoundland or something like that, it would not come from pineapple land down here in Hawaii and Philippines and the tropics and whatnot. It would be coming from somewhere, maybe Coconut Express or whatever grows down there, Sugarcane Express. So this is why the term Pineapple Express back in 1998 seemed to be retired amongst meteorologists, and we thought of a broader term to apply the idea of such a thing across the globe when this could happen again and again and again. So yeah, some of these patterns look like they could be quite impressive, quite strong. How much snow breaks into the interior? Well, we'll take some guesses at that in a minute. Again, though, everything's been changing every day, so in forecast modeling, we have a pretty good idea what the big picture looks like, but it's these small changes that go on that we can't quite count for. So, the idea for this weekend is that most of this weather is moving up the BC coast, but and saying it's going to kind of continue that way, maybe a little breaking through. However, it's entirely possible that a slight change in the overall factors that are making things move this way and that way, and pressure and wind and how cold and warm and how other things want to move, and the effect of the mountains and local topography, and it could happen that suddenly a significant bunch jumps through on Tuesday or something like that, right? So it seems like there's been a lot of disagreements in forecast modeling lately, but one thing we do have to look at today Winter has returned. Be patient and avoid avalanche terrain while the storm snow settles. Early season hazards are lurking below the surface. So very high conditions right now in the middle of Vancouver Island. That's the same for 7:30 a.m. Same thing, basically saying for the coast mountains in BC. When you get to that sort of other side, more interior side, still says the same thing, but we got considerable possibility there. Not much snow still up by Big Creek. Backcountry travel is challenging with minimal snow and hazards close to the surface. So what that's trying to say is you go riding your snowmobile too fast around there, you're going to hit a rock. Winter is set to arrive in the region this weekend. That's for all the Columbias. Considerable possibilities of snow. Monitor closely how snow is bonding to old surfaces. Expect avalanche activity to increase. And that little bit of new snow will cover up some of the early season obstacles. Keep your guard up and watch for shallow. If you're skiing down a hill, you might slam into a rock that's not exactly skiable. Storm slabs could build through the day in touchy areas where new snow is buried a surface hoar layers. So there's a layer of crystally stuff that got fresh snow on it now, and that might help it take off for a little bit of a ride. So this is kind of an idea of where things are at avalanche-wise now in BC. This is a change. New snow will not be enough to cover early season hazards. So wind deposited snow may be reactive as well. So it's not really time yet to get your sleds out and your skis out in a lot of the mountain ranges in BC. Conditions in Waterton below threshold for avalanches. A series of synoptic soaker systems. The first in a series of weather systems culminating in a large and impactful one on Monday and Tuesday moves through the province. Saturday, snow will fall across the province, coast, and interior. This is followed in quick succession by a second storm that arrives on the coast tonight. The track of this system is such that it appears the north coast will receive heavier precipitation than the south coast or interior. Confidence is moderate with this system. So, a lot of meteorologists aren't willing to say for sure how that's going to happen. Confidence is moderate. We're pretty sure this is how it'll play out. Major weather maker arrives on Monday with significant amount of moisture as it taps into subtropical feed. This is your atmospheric river. It's packing more heat, which significantly raises freezing levels across the south coast of BC. Well, what does warmer air do? It carries more moisture, creating above freezing layers over parts of the interior and will bring heavy snow into the interior. By Tuesday, the warm air moves to the southern interior ranges, bringing rain. You might want to check the river forecast and warnings and advisories because all that southwestern part of BC is under high stream flow advisories. Vancouver Island, South Coast, Metro, Vancouver, Lower, Fraser Valley, including Hope. So this isn't trying to raise fear and panic and whatnot. We want you to know that your basement might flood so that you can make preparations, and don't sit there and criticize meteorological terms invented by scientists for good goddamn reason and then complain afterwards when you get screwed over by having an accident in the highway. You didn't know the conditions would be bad. You didn't know that it was going to be a flood this weekend. You didn't know that there'd be washouts. You decided to travel across BC, but now roads are cut off and you're stuck there waiting for crews to fix a road. Hey, we're trying to warn you ahead of time so you can make plans in your life to work around these things and be prepared. Pacific storm is expected to impact coastal British Columbia this weekend into next week with the most impactful storm, atmospheric river, making landfall on Monday, bringing heavy rain as it moves across southern BC. Moderate precipitation, 20 to 50 millimeters expected through Sunday. With lower freezing levels, much of this precipitation will fall as snow at mid to high elevations across Vancouver Island coastal mountains. A storm hitting Washington, Oregon on Sunday has the potential to swing north to southern Vancouver Island and northern mainland with moderate precipitation, but there's still low confidence in its path. We're not sure yet. Starting Monday afternoon, the more intense storm will make landfall. We're more sure of that, raising the freezing level and bringing heavy precipitation, peaking Monday evening, tapering to Tuesday. Forecast totals could be 150 to 250 millimeters, maybe 300 millimeters at higher end scenario for West Vancouver Island. I would say 400 isn't out of the possibility, but this is, what we're more confident. Moderate to heavy rainfall is expected for inland Vancouver Island, Howe Sound, Metro, Vancouver, Fraser Valley up to Chilliwack with forecast event totals 60 to 100 millimeters. System will shift Tuesday, bringing heavy rain at Fraser Valley and Hope and Coquihalla Summit, 40 to 100 millimeter, maybe up to 120 millimeter high-end scenario. So this warmer air quickly elevating freezing levels, increasing the possibility of snow melt, rain on snow where snow was accumulated. On top of the heavy forecast rainfall, additional runoff inputs could be substantial, right? So upcoming storm system could be regarded with a high degree of caution, as even relatively minor shifts in storm tracking characteristics may have substantial impact on flood hazards in local regions. River conditions, systems come with more than a week of drier than normal conditions. No, more than a week, how about more than a year? However, the first few systems may precondition the ground with wetter soil conditions and initiate modest stream flow increases in advance of the larger storm on Monday. River levels are expected to rise quickly Monday in areas receiving the brunt of the storm, peaking Tuesday into Wednesday. Additional rainfall and snow melt may prolong high flows and extend flood risk into next week. So what if the storm track changes and it goes back to it suddenly aims at Abbotsford? So when we say there's moderate confidence, right now that's not what we're thinking is going to happen, but that doesn't mean it won't. Right? So this is why you got to take notice of these kinds of things. Uncertainty remains high about the specific storm track. What did I just say? As well as the significance of rain on snow inputs. 2 to 5 year return periods are possible with potential for higher ranges if higher end precipitation scenarios occur. A minor flooding in low-lying areas expected, snow melt and heavy runoff. This is why I've been telling you for well over a week here on this channel and on Interior Weather and Wilderness Watchers that this is entirely possible that we could have on both coasts atmospheric rivers going on, Atlantic Canada and Pacific. So no, the media did not come up with this term to scare you. It was coined by Zhu and Newell, 1998. They were scientists. That's what they did, was science. Maybe you're a plumber or a computer programmer or, maybe you're the best mechanic around. Well, these guys are scientists and they're the best at meteorology around, and they help coin a new term that refers to long, narrow streams of high water vapor concentrations in the atmosphere that move moisture from tropical regions towards the poles across mid-latitudes. Got it? Does Canada get atmospheric rivers? Yes. Now, there's our storms, 2 of them in succession, right there on the Pacific coast, and they are greedy and meaty and looking to bring, look, it's windy in there, man. That's aggressive storms. A little bit windy right now into Haida Gwaii down the mid-coast. So it gives us an idea that's where things are wanting to push through. So always telling graphics. I like new storm forecast as an ECMWF, so maybe GFS model will have slight disagreements, but no, it doesn't. Oh, yeah, it does a little bit. Thinking more is going to go into the Rocky Mountains south into Idaho there. So a little bit of disagreements. Next 24 hours, ECMWF has, well, mostly on the coast, a little bit into the Columbias and Caribous and whatnot. What does GFS say? The GFS has slightly different distribution once again, but more or less they both agree that this sort of section of the interior will be completely dry. GFS over the next 3 days, that's when we start to see that atmospheric river slamming in, and mid-coast, it's thinking big time snowfall, 120 centimeters maybe up in some of those mountains there. In the next ECMWF, what does it say? Much the same, except more into the south. Well, look at even some of the interior getting some snow on the ECMWF model in the next 3 days. In the next 5 days, ECMWF thinks it's going to be fairly substantial into the Columbia Mountains. We're getting ridiculous snowfalls into certainly central part of BC, Central Coast Mountains. And over the next 10 days, so we got a pattern here. ECMWF says that major snow by that time should have accumulated in Columbias and Caribous. Coast Mountains will be Avalanche Central, mid-Vancouver Island. So this is just snowfall. It doesn't necessarily give us an indication of rainfall. We'll have to look at that separately in a second. GFS, more or less agreeing, minor changes. In the next 10 days, GFS has rainfall sort of mimicking where some of that snowfall is going to be. ECMWF is calling for a lot heavier rain. So ECMWF has more snow and more rain on tap. GFS is being a little more conservative. So let's look at the ECMWF because it is the one that may indicate to us how bad things could get. So here we have our lows, and they're up there moving around, coming into BC, and they're helping gather a whole bunch of moisture along its southern flank. They spin counterclockwise. That's what lows do. And that's going to help drive a long ribbon of precipitation. You can see it starting to come together now. Even Saturday, it's starting to line up, even though it's not moving really, it's not really affecting BC yet. Definitely Haida Gwaii on Sunday hitting some good rainfall totals, some heavy bands of rain. And this is just sort of number one. Thunderstorms going out there, out in the ocean. So, this is incredible stuff. Sunday, 8 in the morning, 9 in the morning, yeah, we do see some snow in BC for sure. Some snow going on. So that's ECMWF's thoughts on it. Definitely the heaviest central coast and north of, as it pushes itself northward. But that storm hasn't really arrived yet. So it's lining up. And you see the same thing happening on the eastern part of Canada, somewhat differently. But there we go. Low really digs in. 9:59 Monday, 8 a.m. It's now feeding thunderstorms, rain, precipitation, accumulation, up and down into BC. How much local snow you get, that depends on where you live. So check your local forecast, check several different sites. Freezing rain overnight on Monday. Vancouver getting splashed. South Vancouver Island getting splashed. Freezing rain possible in some of these mid-elevation areas, you know, so especially if you're going up a mountain pass, you might go from you know what I'm saying? You might change the conditions you're seeing from freezing from rain to snow. There's that long ribbon. There it is, lined right up, Monday, 11 p.m. That's significant looking to me. So, you know, a small change in where this lands, you know, it might dump a lot of its anger into Washington State and maybe up and even in a little bit of Oregon. But then again, this may pull it further north, this low, and slam into BC more. So that's where some of the uncertainty lies with the days ahead. But we do see that this is probably going to look like that, just where exactly how. And, you know, small changes can mean some area gets a disaster while others receive relatively normal for this kind of year rainfalls. Because obviously heavy rain is normal for the coast. By Wednesday morning, that's kind of when we start to see making a bit of a change for a little bit here. At 11 a.m., things are starting to clear up in central BC, although southern BC is still kind of wallowing in some weather that doesn't have anywhere to go yet. It's kind of waiting for somewhere to direct it. Freezing rain possible, maybe, into northern central Alberta, central Saskatchewan. And like I say, southern BC on Thursday, you still may be looking at overnight periods of snowfall. How much, I'm not willing to make an exact guess, but you know, we've thrown some numbers out here and given you a good explanation as to why there could be changes in that track, right? So this is like the thinking in the storm track so far. The thinking may change. ECMWF, GFS, they have two different kinds of thoughts of pattern, but I figured we'll go with the one that's got the most intense looking thing. That return on Friday, 4 a.m., snow right up through most of BC interior. What's the temperature like at that time? Pretty cold in the Rocky Mountains, man. Pretty cold in northern BC. Pretty cold out in that Chilcotin. -17s, yeah. So we are seeing that dip when that high pressure kind of takes over for a few days in BC. It's going to pull some of that cold air down. All in all, we're expecting with the El Nino to have less of the extreme cold this year. You know, that these Arctic outbreaks will be shorter lived for us. That they may go other places. They may come down this side of Canada more. That's the thinking on that. So that gives you a look at sort of this week coming and the possibility of what these atmospheric rivers may look like. We may have drops in temperature. We may have increasingly bad weather, and we may have return patterns of snowfall with moments of high pressure and colder air. And it looks to me like next weekend we could be looking at a return to yet another atmospheric river, especially if these storms are trying to merge into one angry storm, and they do on this model. Looks maybe a little more low level than the one that what we're seeing at the start of this week. But that return again, precipitous conditions and long ribbons of moisture following a track. And what do? They hit a place and they dump. And it just keeps coming and coming and coming along that track. That is why it's the atmospheric rivers. So I hope that gives you a bit of a picture. So it's a bit of a longer winded video than usual. Please hit like, please hit subscribe. Help me grow this channel because I didn't get the weather forecaster job I was trying to get. That means I'm really stuck being this guy, you know. So I hope you appreciate it because it's as good as it gets for me. I still love doing it. That's the thing. I love weather, and I'm going to talk about it because I think about it. Therefore, if I think about something enough, I might as well share my thoughts if they are quality, proven thoughts, and that's been the case. So keep coming around to the channel because I got a good track record around here. Okay, we'll talk to you next time. Bye for now.